I would like to share something I've noticed about a social group we call adolescents or teenagers. Teenagers are diminished and demeaned a lot of the time, and it's starting to bug me. I like to collect newspaper articles to share with my classes that I teach in adolescent psychology. The teen brain, the more mature, the more reckless. The teen brain is just not grown up yet. Teenagers are a famously reckless species, the mind-numbing abyss of teenage existence. Suddenly, her own children seemed like an alien species. Reckless, immature, alien species. Their lives are a mind-numbing abyss. Check out the words of G. Stanley Hall, credited as the first psychologist to name and study adolescence in 1907. The teens are emotionally unstable and empathic. I'm just going to highlight the red there. It is a natural impulse to experience hot and perfervid psychic states and is characterized by emotionalism. Psychologists, and in many parts of our popular culture, have been doing this for a long time, and I'm one of them. I'm a psychologist too, so I'm not trying to make fun of psychologists. We cast teenagehood in a negative light as all the things that rational and sensible adults are not. As if being emotional is a terrible thing. We make teenagers out to be less than, and then we normalize it with the language of science. But I'd like to let you in on a little secret. We don't see these words, adolescent, adolescence, teenager, appearing with any frequency until about 1900. It turns out that this alleged alien species that we call teenagers is a construct that was invented about 120 years ago as Western nations shifted to a more industrial economy with mass compulsory schooling. Demands for childcare and delayed entrance to the workforce created a need to separate and segregate young people from mature community activities. Developmental psychologists call this phenomenon age segregation, where basically everyday life is organized for people to be together with same age peers. 12-year-olds stick with 12-year-olds, senior citizens stick with senior citizens, and never the twain shall meet. And then we act as if it's a choice that teenagers want to start just congregate with each other during that time period. For me, this is not just academic. I've got a 13-year-old, and he's in 8th grade, and things are changing in our household. There's no question about it. I want him to feel connected to his community and his teachers, and I want him to be given opportunities to be part of planning and decision-making at his school. And I've also seen how much this matters in my work with young people from marginalized backgrounds, such as in San Francisco's Mission District, where I got to work and learn with a wide range of Black, Latino, Asian Pacific Islander, and white youth from around the ages of 12 to 20. We worked in teams. You could see us in different parts of the city in the mid-90s with hard hats on, cleaning parks, building play structures. And in my experience, those young people and the young adults who worked with them really thrived in a context of care, community, support, and voice. This became even more poignant for me in research I did several years ago about the closure of a neighborhood high school. I went to the open forum in the school's auditorium to see what people were saying. Several district board members stood on stage as students voiced their disapproval of the decision. One student said, "You're putting barriers in front of us instead of removing them." Another student called for more elective classes and resources, saying, "Yeah, our school does need changes, but not the way you see it." And others talked about the deep connections they felt to teachers at their school, and they wanted people to invest in their school rather than shut it down. After several comments like this, one board member spoke up and said, "You think we're doing this to you, but we're not. We're doing this for you." These policymakers had good intentions, no doubt. They really did want to do good things for the kids. But what if we stopped doing things for teenagers and started doing them with teenagers? This slide says nothing about us, without us, is for us. And what I love about my job, and I get to both be a teacher here and also I'm the faculty director of CU Engage, which is a Center for Community-Based Learning and Research. What I love about my job is that I get to spend time in different kinds of learning environments and kind of see young people behaving in ways that are much more complex than these reductionistic narratives. I study learning communities where youth discuss what's going on in the world and how they can change the world for the better. Some of these groups get big headlines for being activists out on the streets, arguing for their right to live and work, get married, and go to school in the country where they've grown up, and to be treated with dignity and safety by their schools and the police. But I also gain just as much inspiration from the work students are doing behind the scenes, usually with adults in their classrooms or community centers, doing the slow and patient work of organizing each other around local issues that affect them directly. Just 2 weeks ago, actually, I visited an after-school classroom at a high school in the far northeast of Denver, which serves mostly Latino and Black students. I'm going to slow down for a minute, and I want to kind of paint you a picture of the scene. It was that cold Wednesday, actually 3 weeks ago now, where it snowed in Colorado, for those of you who live in Colorado. And I remember driving over. I was running a little late because of the weather. It was about 3:10. Students were streaming out of the school as I got there because the day was over. I walked in with a colleague, and we sort of found our way into the building, and it was empty about 2 minutes after the bell had rung. And we found our way into a dimly lit classroom where about 15 students were engaged in a spirited discussion of challenges they were experiencing at their school and how these challenges were related to the broader kind of context that they lived in the district and city and state. 3 11th graders were facilitating the meeting. The teacher was sitting by his desk quietly working. This was a student club that formed at the school to address root causes of challenges at their school. Students brought up all kinds of issues: the way they're treated by teachers and security guards, and the quality of relationships with adults in the building. I heard students, both young women and young men, be very vulnerable with each other about their experiences of bullying and what kinds of things they wanted to do to ensure that that place was a safer and more supportive for their younger siblings. They also talked about policy issues. In a small group, some students expressed dismay that fewer families were sending their kids to that school because of classes being cut from the budget, such as drama, theater, and honors classes. And as families heard about the cuts, it meant fewer students enrolling, which meant fewer funds going to invest in the school. One of the students sitting next to me said, "It's a vicious cycle." The meeting was supposed to end at 4, and at 4:25, the group was still talking and brainstorming with each other. I was actually starting to worry I was going to be late for my next event, which was actually just going out to dinner, but they were on it. They were excited. But what I want to underscore is that these are not exceptional kids. They had the chance to have this invitation from their teacher. They're not just the good ones who are different from their alien brethren. No. They are ordinary kids who are responding to an invitation to be part of a space where they have a voice, yes, but they also get to collaborate with each other and educators in their building. Guess what their project was last year? I was really impressed when I heard this. Last year, they decided they want to improve the retention of teachers in their building because they felt too many were leaving too early after only spending half a year or a year there. And they wanted to have stronger conditions for their teachers so they could learn. So let's flip how we make sense of the brain research. It's not about how immature and reckless youth are, and it's not about protecting teens from themselves. I view it as being about potential for sophisticated decision-making, which takes practice and opportunity. It's about treating young people as partners and figuring out what kinds of environments will serve them effectively. To figure out what kinds of classrooms promote their engagement and their learning, and what kinds of policies support their dignity in schools. Imagine what would happen if we, as educators, policymakers, social workers, school leaders, started to challenge these deep stigmas about adolescence and rethink the meaning of the teen years and engage them as people. At the local level, I see schools that are warmer and more welcoming to everyone, and where students are brought into the agenda of learning from their teachers. But I also see so much potential for a healthier democracy and a renewed sense of inspiration and ideas for solving complex challenges we face. We can take advantage of the heightened sensitivity that young people have to issues of fairness and justice and their fresh ideas about what to do about it. So next time you hear somebody put teens in their place, perhaps by even saying that the prefrontal cortex is not yet developed, you could say, exactly, it's still developing. That's why we need them at the table with us, working things out, exercising that muscle, because we can't do it alone. Thank you.